Murdorf and the Mortal Flaw, Book 1, Chapter 30, The Ride Back. There was silence as the riders crossed the snowy mountains, still trying to understand King Justice's position. Why would he not ride? Is he afraid of the sword or Davan? Does he really care about us mortals? So many questions without logical answers left them feeling abandoned and discouraged. Meanwhile, sorrow flooded Windsor's spirit as he grieved the irretrievable loss of his immortality, as well as questioning his lifelong journey separated by the love of his life. Perhaps I am a foolish old man after all, he thought. Heartache, loneliness, regret. Knowing what could have been, he hurt now more than ever. When they were nearly halfway across the mountains, somewhere in between the mountain of infinity and the hill of descent, but having already passed through the passage of crossing, the riders spotted a lone dark rider. He immediately fled upon sight of their presence. Windsor knew. He sensed a presence that was much greater than a single rider. He paused and looked over his shoulder, and out of the corner of his eye he spotted Aquila, peering out from behind a tree. "The immortals," whispered Ormondale. "They rode down behind us." No one else spotted them, for the immortals were so mysterious in all of their ways. By day the riders rode, and at night they set up camp and slept, and they feasted on the king's food. They didn't encounter a single Quadarist or even a Derv on the journey home. On the third night, Windsor finally got an opportunity to catch up with Ormondale, just the two of them. "Would you mind helping me gather some wood, old friend?" Windsor asked him. "Not at all, glad to. But you'd better be careful who you call old man," Ormondale teased. As they gathered small logs and kindling wood, the prophet asked the question that had remained unanswered. "So why didn't you make contact with me, or someone, to let us know that you were alive?" The aging warrior paused for a moment before responding. "Like I said, it's complicated. I didn't remember anything for a long time. Windsor, I didn't even know who I was. King Justice let me stay in his palace for some time. Bits and pieces of things began to come to me, but it was all fragments of the events in Quadar. I was so afraid for a time I wouldn't even go outside." He paused again, collecting himself, then continued. "Here I was in the safest and most fortified land, and I was afraid. I felt like such a coward. The place has been a refuge for me, a healing balm. Now I have no more fear." He straightened, affirming his recaptured courage. "But when I finally began to feel the fear leaving me, I was too embarrassed to tell you or anyone else that I was alive, and that I had simply been too afraid to leave my sanctuary." "I'm so sorry, Ormondale," Windsor said gently. "You never have to feel embarrassed about being fearful. Few people live through what you've lived through. I can only imagine what that does to someone." He laid a compassionate hand on his friend's shoulder. "But remember, where there is no fear, there is no courage. You have always been courageous." "Thanks, my friend. King Justice and the people of Shai Kadesh were so kind to me. I didn't want to leave," Ormondale admitted. "Is this your first time out of Shai Kadesh?" Windsor asked. "Yes, but I would rather not tell the others." "As you wish. But you are sure this is a good idea?" asked Windsor. "I have to do this," Ormondale affirmed. He picked up an armful of logs and headed back to the camp. After making a nice pile of firewood, Inca lit the fire. Ormondale instinctively backed up, distancing himself from the blaze. Sitting around the fire, they made small talk. "Cosby, Windsor tells me that you're an earth dweller," asked Vandorf. "I am, but we moved out of the community when I was a little boy. My father found work in the city." "Who was your father?" "Azraz Yuvong." Vandorf smiled and nodded his head. He knew the family. He knew the boy. But he didn't tell the boy that he was alive because of him. Vandorf didn't care to toot his own horn. But in his heart, Vandorf felt a sense of pride that he had defended his life. Mongard pulled out a piece of wood he had been chiseling on for days to allay the boredom. He chipped away, putting the finishing touches on an exact replica of the one just outside the walls of the immortal city. Vandorf polished his boots, sharpened his sword, and trimmed his stubbly beard. Navi had bagged a turkey along the way and was preparing it for roasting. Ormondale looked at the younger prophet. "Why did you kill that dumb bird? King Justice sent us out with more than enough food." "Oh, you know, we always think we need more, don't we?" Navi replied. "Plus, the dumb bird flew right into me. It was practically begging to be killed." Ormondale leaned over the crackling fire and looked at the dagger Navi was using to cut up the bird. "That's my dagger." "This?" Navi said, holding up the dagger. "Now that you mentioned it, I believe it was yours." "Was?" questioned Ormondale. "Well, you were dead, crony," Navi explained. "You took my dagger?" "No, it was a gift. It was in a box of things that Gilmanza gave me. Every time I use it, I think of you and the stories about you." "Well, I'm not dead now, so give it back." "I'll tell you what, crony, I'll give you the dagger if you will clean this bloody bird." Ormondale jerked the dagger out of his hand. "I guess that's a no," Navi said. Navi reached into his satchel and pulled out a lesser knife and proceeded to clean the turkey. After eating, they pulled out their covers and went to sleep. Out of this silence, Navi spoke up. "You know, crony, I was wondering, if something were to happen to you, say you were to die or something. Not that I would want you to, but I'm just saying, if something would happen, could I have your dagger?" Ormondale rolled over and looked at him. Without another word, he turned back around and pulled the covers over his head. "I guess that's a no," Navi whispered. "I'll tell you what, mate, I'll trade you the pink hat for it," he offered. "Not on your life. Like the lady said, pink suits you," said Ormondale. It wasn't until then that Windsor remembered the purple hat and tossed it to Navi, smiling. Navi smiled. It was perfect. Cold temperatures were rolling in, even in the valley. Not wanting to run the mounts too hard and tire them, the riders took their time. Windsor wondered what the purpose was in rounding up these riders without King Justice riding out with them. It all seemed like a waste of time now. He pondered the words of King Justice and knew within his soul that the gathering of these riders was indeed purposeful, and he had a hunch that he would soon learn the mission. The full moon came and went. In time, the riders finally reached the city of Zaire. When they neared the city wall, they veered off down a country road. The dying trees looked lonely, naked, and miserable. The timbers scattered the plot of ground where whitewashed tombstones stood. Windsor led the way, stopping in front of a grave. The tombstone read, "Ormondale Silas Thyatire." Ormondale, pale, realized that he should be dead, and nearly was. 1,000 times over he had wished he would have died. It would have been easier than wrestling with the demons that haunted him. Windsor walked over a familiar headstone. The name on the stone read, "Tylas Windsor O'Dean." Windsor touched the stone and took a deep breath. Ormondale wasn't the only one to have once been believed to be dead.